When it comes to online resources to strengthen your relationship, there are countless options. But on today's episode, Dr. Liz and I welcome Dr. Brian Doss to the show, and he shares a science-backed resource called Our Relationship that is one of the most helpful out there. We dive into the DEEP, or DEEP, framework, breaking down differences, discussing emotions, stress, and unhealthy patterns of communications. It's been around for more than 15 years, and it's helped tens of thousands of couples. Dr. Brian D. Doss is a professor of psychology at the University of Miami and co-founder and president of Our Relationship. His research program focuses on increasing the reach and effectiveness of couple interventions with a special focus on technology. His digital Our Relationship program has been continuously funded by the National Institutes of Health, the Administration for Children and Families for more than 15 years. Dr. Doss has over 125 professional publications and is co-author of the Therapist Manual for Integrative Behavioral Couple Therapy, one of the 3 couple therapies with the highest level of empirical support. Dr. Doss's research has been featured on The Today Show, CNN, MSNBC, The New York Times, The Miami Herald, and elsewhere. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Stronger Marriage Connection podcast. I'm Dr. Dave here at Utah State University alongside Dr. Liz Hale, our licensed clinical psychologist and therapist. Our aim really is to bring you the very best we have in relationship resources and research, along with some tips and tools to help you create the marriage of your dreams. All right, Liz, we know today there are more relationship resources today than ever before, and even more specifically, I'd say more online resources to help couples strengthen their marriage connection.
You know, it's a really good time to be married, right? Dave, I think. Or to think about getting married.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many helps out there. But the question is, how do you know which ones to trust and which ones are research-based and the ones that are really worth it? Well, here to discuss several online relationship tools and resources as a friend and colleague from all the way down in Southern Florida at the University of Miami, Dr. Brian Doss. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. We're looking forward to just hearing all you have to say about so many resources and the great work you've been doing down there in Miami. And Brian, you've been at this for 20 plus years now, researching, you're counseling, you're creating resources, you're publishing tools, all to help couples. Tell us a little bit about the evolution, maybe first, of these online resources available just in the last decade. It feels like things have really exploded.
Yeah, they have, definitely. Well, you know, I got my start as a kind of more traditional couples therapist. That's kind of what my training was originally. And we developed Our Relationship program, with our digital application all the way back in 2009 as a way to essentially kind of, increase the reach of those services. But you're right, it's really been in the last 10 years, and especially kind of COVID, that really has accelerated the development of the online programs.
Yeah.
I think that's so exciting. In addition to these online resources, Brian, there are all kinds of new, fun, innovative ways for couples to stay connected and improve their relationship. What are some of your favorites? Something you really like to make sure couples know about, the resources and the tools, my friend. What are they?
Yeah. Well, because I think you bring up a good point, and that what you really want to do is find the right thing for your relationship. Because I think there's some kind of lighter touch things that you can do that are kind of more playful. There's card decks and things like that. There are also apps that you can, kind of ask each other questions, or have the app ask you questions. And if you both respond, you can see each other's responses and things like that. So those are kind of more playful, where something like Our Relationship program, that's really, we think about that as a digital tool to solve relationship problems. So, that's kind of less playful and more planful, if that makes sense.
Are there different categories? I don't know about Our Relationship, but I will now. Are there different categories? Brian, how does this work?
Different categories of the
what's
app.
You said Our Relationship. Is that what it's called? The app?
Yeah, it is. And I'm happy to kind of dive into that. That's what we've been working on for all the way since 2009. So over however long that is. I'm losing count.
Yeah, 15, 16 years.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been a long time. We've developed that program through a variety of federal funding and tested it with a variety of different populations and things like that. So happy to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, in fact, Liz, that's one that we have on our the Stronger Marriage website, the Utah the Marriage Commission. That's one of the few programs that we actually highlight and say, hey, this is a trusted resource. So right there, yeah, for our listeners, if you want a quick version, you go to strongermarriage.org, our website. Click on that. So tell us, let's dive into our relationship. Tell us a little about the program and the primary aims.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, we think about it as a digital tool to solve relationship problems. So we know that there are effective couple therapies out there. The challenge is most couples don't seek couples therapy, or those that do, they wait way too long to seek it. So, what we've done is we've adapted our effective couple therapy program to the Our Relationship program. And it takes couples through a 3-step process where they identify a relationship problem that they're struggling with. Kind of, we help them better understand that relationship problem, and then eventually kind of provide tailored tips to solve those problems. And we have, within our relationship, we have programs tailored for a variety of couple types as well as a variety of relationship issues, because we think it's really important to, meet couples where they are.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, is there, a primary audience? Is this for those who are just, curious, they're doing pretty good, or for those who are, minor struggles, those who are, serious issues, or the whole range? I guess what's kind of the ideal client or participant?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is everybody. We see everybody. We see everybody from, couples who are engaged and about to be married. They're doing it as part of an effort to, some premarital education or those types of things, to couples who, have recently discovered their partner is cheating on them and they're trying to figure out whether they can save their relationship. So we really do see a wide variety of couples. I think kind of the ideal person to do Our Relationship is somebody who, there's been something in their relationship that they have struggled for a while to try to improve or fix. And, that could be something that they're lacking, that they miss or they see in other relationships, or it could be, the presence of a positive. They're arguing a lot presence of a negative. They're arguing a lot or something like that. So, that's the person who I think we want, somebody who wants to solve that issue and, are willing to either do that on their own or with their partner and kind of actively make a commitment to do that.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about it, Brian. How's it different, I guess? I mean, you hit Google and relationship resources, you're going to have a million things pop up. Tell us a little bit more about yours and how unique it is.
Right. Well, I think one thing that's really important about what we do is we have studied and tested everything that's publicly available. And so we can say with confidence, after working with thousands and thousands of couples, that we know this program is effective. And we know that it's effective in improving a lot of different types of relationship issues. So we help, couples with all sorts of different problems. We know that we can improve, emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy, as well as decrease, conflict and aggression and those types of things. So that's exciting. So we know that it affects a lot of areas of the relationship. The other thing that we're really excited about is that we've shown that, because the relationship is improving, people's mental health improves, their physical health improves, they're sleeping a lot better and things like that. And even their families are doing. They're able to parent better. They're reporting fewer problems with their children, either getting into trouble at school or fewer depression and anxiety. So at the end of the day, to sum all that up, we know that it works, and I think there's very few programs out there that can say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love hearing, and I've read a bunch of the research and the studies on this that they're backing that up. I love that it's science-backed, research-based, that you've done quite a bit of work on this. Remind me, I can't remember if you talked about it as far as the length, I don't know, average length, or what I guess couples expect, okay, what is this and how long is this going to last?
It's about depending on if you're working on one or two relationship issues at the same time, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 8 to 10 hours of content, which might sound a little bit kind of intensive or scary, but we do take you through kind of step by step. And if couples elect to do so, they can also work with a coach as they move through the program. So we've tested the program both with and without a coach. We know that it works for both. But it's always nice to have, that coach that acts as a personal trainer to kind of keep you on track and, tweak the techniques and other types of things that you're learning throughout the program.
Love that option. And Liz is familiar. I mean, I love Liz's approach, actually. I'm not a therapist, Liz is, but she's about intense sessions because sometimes 50 minutes it's really hard. And so wouldn't you agree, Liz?
Oh my gosh, an hour session is a great way to feel like a bad therapist. It just is. There is no substitute for time. So as a couple, we're going to spend 8 to 10 hours talking about this topic, right? Whatever the topic might be. We may as well spend 8 to 10 hours in a program like our relationship and really get some good help.
Right.
So we're going to spend that time anyway.
Yeah. And those in-person sessions are great. I'm a big fan of couples therapy, but we know that for a lot of our folks, they can't find time to do it with their partner, or the time that they have is on the weekends or, in the evening, middle of the night, or, on the way home from work or whatever it is. And so, the flexibility of the program that you can kind of, do it on your phone, do it when you're separated from your partner, you don't have to physically be together. And then the program brings you and your partner together for those moments where you are going to share kind of what you're working on. So it's a lot more flexible that way than kind of traditional couples therapy.
So exciting. I love this whole idea.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right
in. You and your colleagues, my friend, have also created a framework to help couples better understand their challenges. And we all have them, right? And you call it DEEP, DEEP. Can you help us walk through that acronym and how it's helpful for all of us as couples?
Yeah. So, I mentioned kind of the Our Relationship program is a 3-step process, kind of identifying a problem, understanding, and then eventually solving it. So the deep understanding comes in that middle section, the understand section. And we feel like that's important because, if you're in an unhappy relationship, and if I were to ask you kind of, what's wrong in your relationship, you're probably going to point across the room and say, that's what's wrong, meaning your partner. And that's natural because, you've struggled for a while to kind of work on this issue, to understand this issue. And you've been trying to change your partner or trying to do things differently. And your partner's not cooperating for some reason. So we tend to kind of experience our unhappy relationships as, a very simple explanation of, if my partner would just change, things would be okay. But oftentimes it's more complicated. So the deep framework, or that deep understanding, is a way to try to give couples kind of a more accurate, kind of less blaming understanding of their relationship problems. So it is an acronym. So D stands for differences. So there we're talking about natural differences like personality or maybe emotional expressiveness. Some people are easily able to label and identify their issues and kind of talk about emotions. Some people aren't. Other people are going to be more, kind of extroverted. Other people aren't. So you want to kind of think about kind of where are the two of you kind of naturally different, and to what extent is that driving your relationship problems? Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we're different, right? No kidding.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, let's go to the E, the first E of deep, please.
Yeah. So the first E that we like to talk about is emotions. And not surprisingly, emotions play a very important role in our romantic relationships. We're in a relationship because of the positive emotions that it brings, right? And we'll often think about kind of, lots of positive emotions or, lots of negative emotions. But there's another distinction that we really try to encourage couples to make, which is kind of a surface emotion versus a hidden emotion. So a surface emotion are essentially the emotions that you express to your partner and that you see from your partner. And when you're in an unhappy relationship, a lot of the surface emotions that we see are the anger and the frustration, or sometimes it's the lack of emotion. It's the withdrawal or the defensiveness. And, what's happening there is those are sort of our reactions. Those are what are called secondary emotions. The hidden emotions are the primary emotions. So when something happens or your partner does something, you experience this hidden emotion, this primary emotion. It might be hurt. It might be, feeling lonely. It might be feeling disconnected, jealous, whatever it is. We're feeling kind of these more vulnerable emotions. But instead of kind of voicing those, we act on them, and we kind of show our surface emotions. And so the challenge is for couples who are trying to work through kind of relationship issues is first identifying what are those hidden emotions that they're experiencing, and then starting to express those hidden emotions, which we're going to pick up kind of towards the end of the deep understanding. But you can imagine if instead of reacting to your partner with, I can't believe you did that to me. You're so, that was so disrespectful. You lead with, that really hurt me when you did that. It's a scarier thing to say, but it also invites a much more kind of open and honest and probably, hopefully, eventually, productive conversation. But you need to be able to recognize those.
Oh, I love it. You're going to get a much better response from a partner, right?
Right.
Who's not having to defend themselves. Okay. So I love this. So difference and emotions, secondary versus primary. Yep. And then the second E, please, and deep.
Yeah. The second E is external stress. Are creating problems in our relationship. Our car breaks down and now we've got to figure out how to deal with it. That's a problem that as a couple we have to navigate. Or sometimes, we've just had a really bad day at work and we come home through the door and, our partner's talking to us about something else. And the only thing we can think about doing is just we just want to sit down and take off or, change our clothes and all of those types of things because we've had such a bad day at work. And, even though our partner's talking to us about something completely different, we just can't hear it. So stress has, lots of different impacts on our relationships that make them kind of more difficult to navigate.
Mm-hmm. And then the P of deep, please. We got difference, we got emotions, external stress, and P stands for?
P is patterns of communication. So patterns, we talk a lot about, I'm sure lots of your listeners are have heard about kind of the speaker listener technique and the problem solving structures and things like that. And those are all really important kind of aspects of communication and kind of can help us, express those deep emotions or those hidden emotions, for example. But the thing we focus on a lot with the patterns of communication is the cycles that we get into over time. And so, let's start to construct a deep understanding for a couple. So let's imagine there's a couple who is, maybe they have natural difference in how much closeness they want. One person likes to spend a lot of time together. The other person doesn't, for example. And, maybe somebody kind of gets a job where they're traveling a lot. So that's the external stress. So you take this natural difference and then you pull the person, one person away even longer. So we've got external stress. And so they feel these emotions of, oh, I'm kind of lonely. I'm feeling distant from you. But that's not what they express. What they express is the anger that they're taking another trip, right? So you've got these three pieces coming into play. Now we have to look at the pattern. Well, what is it? What happens when that person expresses that anger? Well, probably what's going to happen is the other person's going to withdraw or they're going to defend themselves. I need to take this trip. I have to for my job. I don't want to. It's just part of what I have to do. So they defend themselves. Well, now maybe the next time the trip comes up, maybe they know this fight's going to happen, right? So they don't even ask their partner whether they can take this trip. They just agree to this trip. And now the other partner finds out, wait, you agreed to take this trip without even telling me? And so what happens is they start to polarize over time. And so what starts is this natural difference in, these kind of natural experiences and emotions they're having, they start to get more and more extreme over time. And so even though they both wanted to be in this relationship, they both wanted to spend time with each other. They both enjoy spending time with each other. Now, all they can do is fight about how much time they're spending together and how the other person is being so unreasonable. And so that's what we start to see with these patterns of communication, is that how they have interacted over time has really driven them to a place where they kind of almost don't even recognize their relationship anymore.
Wow, Brian. Yeah, and I'm just processing all of this. Yeah, this is fascinating for me as one who hasn't, done therapy, but it feels like that these patterns of, you get someone that just reacts to someone's behavior with a behavior instead of going deeper and understanding the person is hurt or lonely or isolated, and then it makes them angry or anxious or fearful. Yeah. And then but it comes out as a, hey, you, or the blame. And so we're on the outside here with behaviors instead of saying, hey, let me truly understand the feelings. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's totally normal, if that makes sense. I mean, I think we operate a lot of our time on autopilot. And I think kind of that's how we deal with situations in our life. We react rather than, and we don't actually really examine why we're reacting that way. And for most of the time being on autopilot in our relationship and driving, and, there's lots of advantages to that. There's just so many things happening that we can't examine everything. But if you and your partner are really kind of struggling with something, you really kind of need to flip that autopilot off and take the time to say, like, wait a second, like, why am I, this is somebody I love. Why am I reacting in this way? Or why is my partner reacting in this way? And start to kind of really think about that and think about how you could handle that differently.
It's very well named. It's a very well named acronym, DEEP. It is just
Thank
that.
you.
Helps us go a little deeper.
A little deeper.
Yeah, I love that. So that's really what our relationship is about, helping couples with their differences, breaking them down, kind of pulling the curtains aside and saying, hey, look, you're in this destructive pattern. Let's go a little bit deeper and find out. Yeah.
And the great thing about apps is, we can do assessments and we can, so we can give people feedback on where their differences are. For example, we'll take information from the partner or take information from the user, show them where they're different, and give them, tips and suggestions based on kind of that content. Because we know couples differ in lots of different ways.
Yeah. Well, and let me take that a step further, Brian, with some of that data. I mean, you've been doing this again, like 20 years. You collected all kinds of things. You're discovering things. Do you have our listeners, they love practical tips they can use to strengthen their marriage. What have you learned over the years that might be helpful for couples who are looking for simple things they can help their relationship with right now, today, to overcome the challenges and become closer?
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, a lot of times it is the day-to-day things that we kind of think about or don't think about. So, the smaller types of things I think are the invisible support. So, lots of times when we think about supporting our partners, it's there with the tissue in hand, they're crying on our shoulder. And sometimes that's what our partner needs. But a lot of times what our partner needs is for us to do the dishes before they even realize that the dishes need to be done. And so this idea of invisible support, where we're taking stress out of our partner's lives, so that if they've had a tough day or they're struggling with something, we remove some of those barriers, we remove some of those other stressors so that they have the time to deal with whatever it is that they need to do. So that's this idea of invisible support. One other kind of thing that kind of comes top of mind is gratitude. There's a lot of really interesting research just kind of showing how important it is to recognize that we're grateful for our partner. And that can be something that, you're doing in sort of prayer, kind of being thankful for, or praying for your partner. Or it could be other ways that you're kind of recognizing that you're grateful for your partner. And then, of course, we want to tell our partner that we're grateful for them, So thank you very much. And it doesn't have to be, this earth-shattering kind of something you'd, grab from a Valentine's Day card. It can, thank you for cleaning up the kitchen. Like that was, I really appreciate that. Like it's just the simple stuff.
I love that. And it's hard to feel some of that when we're feeling resentful, right? It's hard to notice things or to give compliments or to, man, maybe if I served them or did this, because we're so caught up, I guess we're turned inside with all those other things, our emotions are stressed. So I love the idea of breaking this down and get back to some of these basics of turning outward with gratitude or serving and loving and lifting. Helpful. Thank you.
And I do find whatever we focus on grows, right? Or I'll find the evidence for. If I think he's a stinker pants, I'm going to find the evidence of my husband being a stinker pants. If I focus on, wow, he is just such a good partner, just always there to meet my needs, I will see things I hadn't seen before.
Yeah. And both things can be true. I'm not encouraging couples to, like put on the rose colored glasses and just pretend that your partner's not the stinker pants. I think that was the expression you used. Because if we pretend that they're not the stinker pants, then we're flipping on the autopilot. And, if we're not too careful, we're going to crash without, somehow kind of dealing with the fact that there's some important things that we don't like that our partner's doing. But if we lose track of the other side, we'll lose track of why we even want to be in this relationship. So it's the gratitude that kind of keeps us kind of recognizing that our relationship is worth saving and worth working on if we are experiencing problems.
And the autopilot, not bringing up the important things. Is that your concern, Brian, as a researcher and teacher?
Yeah. So, I think there's a lot of really interesting research showing that when we're happy in relationships, we sort of give our partners extra credit. We sort of downplay any negatives or, if they're late, it's because of traffic was bad or not that they were somehow irresponsible or, whatever else. We make all these really nice kind of accusations or kind of attributions. So for the most part, that's good to kind of smooth out the bumps in the road. But when there's something that's more than a bump in the road, or we start heading down the wrong road, if we wait too long to figure that out, it becomes much harder to kind of turn back around and get back on the right road. So the trick, I think, is kind of recognizing when something is just going to kind of blow over versus when something actually needs some kind of focused attention.
Wow. And the wise person knows the difference, sounds like.
Right. That is the challenge sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's where that coach could come in. I really don't feel like marriage therapy is necessary for every couple, so that's why I think something like this is so exciting with our relationship.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Well, okay. In addition to these helpful resources we've discussed today, you've written books and so much more. Can you share with our listeners where they can go to find out more about you, Ryan, and the resources that you offer?
Yeah, sure. So if you are interested in a book, we do have a book for couples, which is called Reconcilable Differences, as opposed to Irreconcilable Differences. So that's Reconcilable Differences. That's available on Amazon or, wherever else you would buy books. Our website is ourrelationship.com. So OUR relationship.com, all one word. You can also find the Our Relationship program in both of the app stores if you search Our Relationship. And we do have a couple of, free versions of the program. We're fortunate to have support from the federal government. So if you go to free.ourrelationship.com, that's a version of the program that we can provide to essentially working class couples. It's based on household income. And if you're a member of the U.S. military, you can go to military.ourrelationship.com and get a free version of the program there.
Very
and then, of course, it's also, you can find these links available on the Utah website if you all want to provide that link here. I'll give you a chance to plug your own site.
Yeah. The strongermarriage.org, where we have Brian's a link to his program. But Brian, we're going to put all those links as well for our listeners in the show notes. If you miss those listeners, please go there. Great resources. And like you said, military, there are some that he's doing with this, with the grant, qualify in that income range. You can take it for free, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. Wow. Brian, well, there's a couple of questions we like to ask all of our guests before we let you go.
Okay.
The first one is this. In your mind, with all the research and things that you've done, what do you feel like is the key to a stronger marriage connection?
Oh, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to boil it down into one thing, but I guess actually the advice I would give is actually not even my advice, as I'm going to steal it from somebody else, but it's this idea of turning towards rather than turning away. So, if you've had a stressful day or there's something that's bothering you, try to make it your partner that you kind of open up and talk to about that. Because what that's going to do is it's really going to strengthen that connection. It's, disclosing to our partners, kind of opening up and sharing with our partners and giving our partners a chance to support us in that moment is one of the main ways that we can feel closer to our partners. And so when we turn away from our partners, when we have those conversations with our friends or with our families, it sort of robs us of an opportunity to do that with our partners. That doesn't mean our partners have to be there 24/7 for us. It's great to have other people we can have those conversations with. But I would certainly encourage folks to have those conversations with the partners as well.
Absolutely love it. Yeah. Big fan of Gottman. Yeah. And one of the reasons we name our podcast Stronger Marriage Connection is the importance of that connection. So turning towards your partners for that connection. Love it. Now, as we wrap up, is there a take-home message? We call it a takeaway of the day, a message you hope our listeners will remember from our discussion today, Brian?
I think maybe I'll pick up on kind of what Liz kind of called out, which is this idea of autopilot and kind of knowing when to stay on autopilot and when not to stay on autopilot. I'm certainly not going to recommend that old advice of never go to bed angry with each other and things like that. Sometimes things fade over time. It's okay to be upset and frustrated with our partners. I think if I start getting a little worried about couples who never have those experiences. So autopilot, there's going to be turbulence. That's okay. That doesn't mean that we're off track. But if you start feeling like you can't talk to your partner, that you're a stranger or you're arguing all the time and you're just really wondering if this is the right person for you, maybe you made a mistake, you're starting to get pessimistic that something needs to change, please reach out to somebody at that point. That can be a spiritual leader, that can be a mental health professional, that can be, going to the Our Relationship program. But it's much easier to kind of address those things, those problems when they're starting than it is after they've been there for several years. And that's how long most couples wait to seek couples therapy is years after serious problems develop.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Liz, what about you?
I'm kind of smiling at that one piece of Brian and Dave, because I often hear many couples, I think I married the wrong person. I think it's a really common fear. When we think that we're hitting the same wall again and again and again, maybe we were just not meant to be. And, so I have such hope. And with a program like yours, Brian, with you and your colleagues, that we can all understand that it's a really common feelings. And again, you have just expressed how natural some of this is, right? When we're mere mortals and we hit our head against the wall. I also really love this idea of invisible support. I've never thought about it that way. It's a beautiful term. Just to think about, how can I take a little bit of stress out of my husband's day, for instance?
Yep.
And I thought that was just lovely. So, Dave, what about you? What's a rich nugget you hope we'll all remember from our time today with Dr. Brian Doss?
Yeah, Brian, thanks for all that you have shared. I love the idea of the deep, of the differences, the emotions, the external stress that's happening, these patterns, these destructive patterns of communication that we get into. And it just hit me that we can help couples to instead of reacting to their partner's behavior, responding to their emotions or to their deep unmet needs, those things that are hidden and that they can't see. And I love that our relationship helps couples expose that, open things up a little bit more. So big fan of all that you are doing in the program that you're running there. So thank you, Brian. Thanks again, taking time to come on and share with us the great work that you're doing, the programs, the decades of research that you have been sharing. Appreciate all your wisdom today.
Oh, thank you very much. It was great being a part of this.
And I like how you said that, Dave, responding to their deep unmet needs, right?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we all have those. We just don't recognize what they are sometimes. And it takes sometimes an outsider. And I love that Liz pointed that out, the coaching option. For some couples, what a gem to have someone, okay, I'm going through this, but we could use a live person now at this point to kind of walk us through that. So you've thought of everything there with that program. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of couples find that coach helpful, but then some couples want to do it on their own. So we give couples that flexibility.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Thanks. That's all for now, my friends. We will see you next time on another episode of the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast.
And remember, it's the small and simple things that create a stronger marriage connection. Take good care now.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Live and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Bolanos, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.